You're listening to the Light Over Time podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is December 8th, 2024. Almost the end of the year, deep into the holiday season. And this is episode 45, I believe. So something like that. Doing great. How are you, David?
I'm doing fantastic. It is, 8:04 p.m. and I'm drinking some tea that has caffeine because I forgot it had yerba mate in it. So here we go.
Nice. Enjoy that. I am drinking a Wild Cherry Pepsi. No morning show today. So got a bunch of stuff for you guys today. I have a little experience with a couple of different Sony cameras that I'll talk about. Gonna talk about this silly lens that I got. We're going to talk about an interesting looking lens from a Chinese company. We are looking at some a7 V, possibly registered in China information. We'll probably speculate what we want to see from an a7 V. Now that, spoiler alert, I believe I'm probably going to hold out buying a new major camera until then. We're going to talk about some of David's stuff, vlogging, commercial gig, and probably just go over some Christmas stuff. So we'll just kind of start the show off with a little bit of an overview of what we're going to do from now on so we can kind of stay on task. I think this week I'll just go first. I'll dip right into some topics of some stuff that I got going on, try to breeze through it. I just returned the other day, Friday, the A7R5. Incredible camera.
And you rented that for how long?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I had that for 2 weeks, and I was coming up on the time to, like, it will be arriving, right? I got the email. It's like, hey, this is arriving this week. And I was like, I'm going to buy the a6700. I've been kicking it around for quite a while. We bird, and I've been wanting to have something dedicated so we can always have like a small camera that's at least capable of shooting decent birds if we're just bopping around or whatever, and then Elle can kind of get used to one system. I can keep it off to the side if I need to, and she can just get used to using one camera so she can actually get good rather than using whatever camera I have available for her. And that's going to be pretty epic. So the first impressions were pretty good, but it was super paramount, super crucial that I had them both at the same time, because I was like eager to pull the trigger on the A7R5. I had convinced myself that I wanted the 61 megapixels again. That I just, I have my A7R or my A7S3, so I'm super happy with my video.
Yeah.
And still running the A7 IV at work, so like I had a pretty good B cam. I just wanted something that was stellar for photos, had higher end, like the newer autofocus, and I just adore that screen. Why I didn't want the A7CR anymore, all of that is because of that freaking screen.
Really?
And sure enough, when it arrived, the first thing that I just like, and in the first 25 images I took on that camera, I used that screen in all of the directions that it swivels.
Yeah.
I love that thing. I love to shoot from the waist. I'm 6'9". I often have to shoot a little lower than my eyesight, like that, or I'm like doing the ninja crouch and all that. And, I'm basically doing aerobics just to take photos. So I'm always shooting waist level. And David probably knows this. If you shoot Sony, you know this. The articulating screens don't go fully 180. It's like 178 degrees off the axis.
Yeah.
So when you're folding it and you're looking down, you kind of have to go at like a little kitty angle.
Just a little. And
when you're trying to get square, I found that little kitty angle sometimes makes me tilt. So it's always kind of combating the balance of making sure it's square and making sure it's level.
It's a little thing until it's a big thing. Yeah,
it's really challenging. And like I said, I shoot from the waist so much. So having that just tilt up is amazing. Best part of the A7R5. It's worth to me almost right away going straight to that camera. I desperately hope that goes to all the other cameras. It's basically perfect.
Yeah, I'm curious if you think that that's a thing that trickles down to lower end cameras below, because I'm not sure that it really is.
I'm not going to buy the A7 V if it doesn't have it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the A7 V later, but that one feature, spoiler, the only thing I cared about over the a6700. I
Okay.
am
All
blown
right.
away with this camera. So, I did a bunch of tests. I did like one-to-one tests at work. I was swamped with Black Friday, a little bit of the holidays. We stayed in Kalamazoo to watch a dog, and like I couldn't bring it to like really start photographing while I had it, which was unfortunate, but I don't regret it because again, being able to not have the what if of do I still want the A7R5 even though like I really love this A6700, invaluable.
Hmm.
I had the 51.4. Didn't find a single reason to want the 1.2 over the 1.4.
Yeah.
The size is better. It's just basically as fast. It's awesome. The lens is perfect. Um, the A6700, I'm going to say, is devastatingly one of the most underrated cameras that I have talked about, used, etc. in a couple of years. That new 26 megapixel sensor is absolutely breathtaking compared to all of the other Sony APS-C sensors I've used. And I've used the 63, 64, 65, the 6000, so the older ones.
Yeah.
But all of those cameras in great depth. I had the a6500 in the Philippines with me for 2 months. I also had the a6500 and a6400 at camp for many years. Like I have a couple of different summers of running that camera every single day. The color depth was bad. The dynamic range was pretty rough. Obviously, for video, it was basically useless because it was 8-bit with like no picture profile help at all. That is not the case. I completely understand why people like Patrick Tommaso love the FX30 and stuff.
Yeah.
It seems to stabilize well. The images are really great. I mean, where it suffers is like, really sharp detail at 600 on the 200 to 600. It's not like the most breathtaking thing ever. But it's 26 megapixels, and if you get your settings right and you get the bird sharp, it's sharp, man.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. There's nothing that you could do if I had to start all over again, knowing what I know still, where I wouldn't upgrade to the A7C2. I wouldn't upgrade to the A7 IV. I would take this in good glass all day long. So I'm currently shooting with it on my 24mm G Master, which is awesome because I was gonna try and sell this lens to get a 35, but this is a 35 1.4 on
the body.
This camera. So this is kind of like my bop around camera.
Very cool.
I'm blown away, man. Sub $2,000, you can get this and the Sigma 18 to 50 f2.8.
Yep.
And it's hard to beat. So the A7C or the A7R5, 61 megapixels is really great. The stills are awesome. The AF awesome. The flip awesome. But as a video backup, useless. It's rough. People have said that it's different when you try to shoot something with it and you're like, how can I cut these things together? It's a tripod camera. It's a C camera at best. I would never use it to shoot like tons of A-roll even. Especially with the tools that I have, right? So if it was my only camera and I was mainly a photographer, it's absolutely incredible. But
I suspect it comes to things like sensor readout on that camera.
Yeah. I mean, you're just getting tons of jello.
Yeah.
And that's what made me go, okay, well, I could just crop in and I could get birds really sharp. But then I was like, but is this faster than the 26 megapixel? Like, am I gonna run the risk of getting like really jello-y shots if my bird's at the bottom left or the bottom right of my sensor, right?
Right.
So I took the range on the front end with the APS-C sensor, and I don't regret it. So far, the camera's awesome. It cuts fluidly between all of my other video cameras with the s-cinetone and the S-Log3.
It's funny. I was talking with a buddy, I think yesterday, about Sony's crazy range of product differentiation right now, and I think they're very They must be very thankful they put that screen in the A7R5, because it's put itself in such a niche kind of segment for photographers, for people who are locked off and really just trying to get the sharpest stuff they can from a still standpoint, because there's so many Sony cameras to choose from. And so you can get what you have now and be really happy shooting birds and 95% of all other things. But if you want that ultimate sharpness in the studio or on a landscape, the A7R5 can give it to you and have a really cool screen, right? So
yeah. Well, and it has the really great EVF.
Yeah.
Like it's an incredible camera.
Yeah.
But it literally came down to, I want megapixels for $2,000.
Right.
And I was like, I don't. I really don't.
Right.
Especially, I had sent a couple of different tests to a few of my buddies. And I was like, and I think I sent you one of the tests, which was the 50 mil on the A7R5 and the 24 mil on the a6700 for like the kind of shot I do every single day at work.
Mm-hmm.
And good luck telling me that one is so much better than the other or anything.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of reasons for me preferring the a6700 is I prefer 35 over 50.
This is slightly related, but would there be scenarios in your job where that resolution would help you? Are you putting anything in big print media at all?
It has. So all of our like printed banners for shows and stuff, I shot all of them on my A7R4.
Sure.
And they're spectacular.
Yeah.
Like the detail and I made them in these massive like Photoshop files.
Yeah.
So like I think it was like 13,000 pixels on one edge because it's comped from a bunch of different stills that I took.
Yeah.
And the detail is freaking immaculate. Like
now,
there's one.
Go ahead.
Sorry, what? There's one that has like 5 different like built out pistols that we made. And they're like this bigger than my head, and you can see every detail and every bit of it. And then next to that is a full body shot with flash of Zach fully kitted out with night vision and everything, and you can see every freaking fiber of his shirt and stuff. Yeah. It's remarkable. It's sick. So
to piggyback off that, if let's say you use the a6700 for that kind of scenario, do you think you'd see? Because obviously the resolution for the size, the distance, the viewing distance of that type. You think you could get it done?
I do think I could get it done, especially with G Master Glass. Like this lens is ultra sharp.
Yeah.
However, this is still a C camera to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I do have the A7 IV, and if I was going to do it, I would probably right now still do it because I have the better tool. Yeah. The better tool is going to be a full frame camera with, especially in studio with flash. Like it's 33 megapixels. It's full frame.
Right. You're giving it all the help. Yep.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to use it. Again, I'm not saying I don't want the 61 megapixels. I just want to see what else is out there. Because right now, bang for the buck, this camera blew me away. It's punching so far above its weight class that like, I was really not finding a reason for me to justify. It came down. I wrote it in my notes. So megapixels for $2,000.
Yeah.
Like, it's sweet when you want it. It's incredible. I love them. The detail, even between like when I had the A1, going back to those 50 megapixels, like slammed me in the face. I was like, oh, it's so good. But yeah, it's just not worth it. And I want this to at least be somewhat of a, I guess like a word for people looking for their next upgrade. That cameras, you'll hear everybody say it on every podcast and every channel, are so good now.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can legitimately say that the APS-C line from Sony is sick.
Yeah.
And like you put I just got my buddy Ryan, who he's submitted some photos on this podcast before. And he teaches photography and some design and stuff in a college. And he just got the a6700 with some of the Sigma primes, like the 31.4 and the 56 mil.
Mm-hmm. And
just beautiful shots coming from it. Like, go ahead and try and tell me, well, it looks really good, but it doesn't look full frame. Because it's freaking a 56.1.4 is a 85 mil, basically, right? Like, it's money. It's so good.
Yep.
Like, you can get that whole prime set and that camera for like $2,500. And I would absolutely shoot this for video as an A camera for any project that's going online.
Sure. You have confidence in that. That's good.
Yeah. It has s-cinetone and S-Log 3 and it shoots 10-bit 422. Like, what else do you want?
Hmm.
Movies for the last, however, 24 years, probably 23 years, have been Super 35.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. In fact, half the time I have to stop down full frame stuff because it's too shallow.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So I got to play with my buddy Derek's A7C2 on yesterday, and I was very interested to see if I could. It was only a few minutes. I was in a cafe. I was just checking out his Samyang 3514, looking back and forth, testing autofocus. I was trying to see if I could see that AI chip in action, and I couldn't. I couldn't make it. Maybe it's the lens. Maybe Samyang's just. It's probably some of that.
100%.
Okay, yeah, and that's where my mind was at. But I was like, what's going on? Trying to go back and forth. I've got all the settings for, face detection. I made sure humans only selected. And then also I tried it on just the straight up automatic mode where it decided priority and what, which mode for what to look at, like human or versus whatever. And I could not get it to just find eyes, even though there were 4 sets of eyes it could have chose. I was like, what's going? So yeah, I'm pretty confident also that it's a lens thing, but it's the version 2 of the Samyang 3514, so not an old lens. And it was snappy enough to rack back and forth, but I was just like, man, is someone buying an A7C2 and then pairing it with a Samyang and really just not getting any of the new AI chip benefits here?
It's not any, so it is a little stickier. You're gonna get some stuff, but a lot of the the eye stuff, a lot of the AI things are talking to the lens to get it perfect.
Right.
So I kind of attribute it to like when you would use the Sigma like MC11 adapter back in the day,
sure,
and you would lose functionality. You're not getting all of the communication to the lens, so that the camera doesn't actually know to go right there.
Right.
Like, because they don't have it calibrated as tightly. I can tell you at 24 mil on the a6700, I can be like holding tracking on different objects, and Elle walked in front of me and there was no other person, and it just went bam, and it snapped right on the eye all the way through the whole frame, and then went back to whatever I was like kind of having in my target after the fact. So again, I'm pretty much only using like G glass or GM glass. So I think I'm just kind of maximizing what's coming out of these cameras, but
sure, yeah,
I think it's incredible, especially even with the teleconverter on the A6700, because we have tested some bird stuff. We've shot some dark-eyed juncos, and we found like there was a red-tailed hawk at the edge of a field that we were shooting, and we've been trying to find this little nasty kingfisher that keeps yelling outside of our house the last handful of days. Didn't hear him today, though.
So just to bring it back real quick, if you were to say, let's say with your 6700 versus the A7 IV, which you probably have good experience now to tell the difference, with that GM glass, then are you seeing that bump in performance with the AI chip over the A7 IV?
Yeah, I did with the A7C2.
Okay.
And I have with the A6700. It's snappier. The A7 IV is still so good, right? But I would call it like it's almost equal to the difference between my A7S III and the A7 IV, which is the A7S III doesn't have kind of any of the newer autofocus stuff, and it just kind of moves cinematically between its points.
Sure.
And then you can go to the A7 IV where it just kind of slams if you have it in the tracking modes and you have high sensitivity. Like I remember being wowed by the A7 IV.
Right.
And now it's just about the same step.
Okay.
Where you're like,
cool.
oh, this is sticky all the time. This is incredible.
That's good perspective. Cool.
Yeah. And again, I still love that kind of slower old school autofocus for video, which is why I love the A7S III so much. But like for this, like I'm watching that box on my head, and it's like it never misses. Good. And that's just crazy. So it's incredible. I can't believe that not more photographers and stuff on YouTube talk about it, because I don't like the ZV-E10 II, and I don't like those like vlogger centric. I would rather have a small camera that has professional photo features rather than kind of skimping on all of that can just do a really good 4K And you know what I mean? Like I don't,
Yeah.
and this does, I think some of that other silly stuff. I think it has auto framing and stuff. I might play with it this year,
Oh, it may. Yeah.
but I don't know. That's not like kind of my thing. But it
Right.
shoots 4K 120.
Mhm.
Like it's cropped, but if I just need some dumb slow mo, I rarely use 4K 120 anyway. I'm a 4K 60 guy, but and that's sharp on here. It's like, dude, this thing is nuts.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's going to serve Elle really great next year when we bird, and she loves how light the 2x teleconverter and the 70 to 200 is on here.
Oh, nice.
It's super light, like
Awesome.
remarkable. But yeah, that's pretty much that. I can't believe how good these cameras are. I really can't, because this is a sub $1,500 camera,
Yeah.
and I could go shoot movies on it, and I'd be comfortable.
I feel like we've been in a bit of a golden age for consumer cameras for quite a while now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely have, but this just cinches it, because like I always say that, but I've always been using A7R4s and G Master Glass and all this, and I
We're
go
really
to this
seeing
like
some of these awesome features come down to the lower tiers. Yeah.
it's crazy. I really can't wait to see, like, maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but I want to see what people are doing with these things. Like,
Sure.
I haven't seen super inspiring content lately, but you know, maybe we'll start seeing some more, because I think across the board everybody has a affordable-ish, pretty professional camera.
Yeah.
The last one, this is just really short. My fiance's brother-in-law has an old Nikon like DSLR camera,
Yeah.
and he was just kind of showing me what he had, and he was like, "Oh, I also have this big stupid thing. You can have it if you want." And it's this old Tamron 28105 f2.8.
And so we're looking at an adapter there, right?
Yeah, so this is a Photosy adapter move. I gotta get out of here
Yeah.
and try and do it. I don't know. My face is in it, and it's everything's manual controls. This came out in 1997.
Oh,
It's super old.
legacy
It is a
stuff.
Tamron SPAF aspherical LD. But it's 82 mil filter front, f2.8 across the entire zoom range, and it has manual aperture control, so I can pretty much run it on my Sony stuff.
Did Tamron ever update that lens throughout the DSLR days?
They have not.
Yeah, interesting.
As far as I can tell,
That
they
was a
have not.
one and done forever for them.
And it's like they should just make that again with, you know, better
Yeah.
components now that they can. But it originally sold for $849 in 1997.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
It has a super short focus throw on this like goofy, chunky, weird little ring. It's kind of like it's kind of hard to see. Maybe I'll put some B-roll up of it.
That's
but it's
the
like,
focus ring?
yeah, it's this
Whoa.
like thin weird guy in the middle. And
I think I
but
can
it's
see
like,
why they didn't redesign.
yeah, because it's awful. Like nobody makes lenses like that anymore. That's archaic. But it seems to hold up. Like the image is great.
Talk to me. What'd you shoot?
Just cats, just like around town. Just like was pulling focus with it. Jacob was running around playing with a hair tie, and I was trying to just see if I could like actually hit focus on a fast moving target. But it I don't know. It's just kind of fun and kind of good. It's heavy and ugly.
Does it look like you put a mist filter on the Sigma 28 to 105?
Yeah, it definitely it's got some weird softness to it, but it is still fairly freaking sharp at 2.8, which is like it's usable. It's like totally usable. But I'm gonna play with it a little bit more now that I just got the adapter like Friday or Thursday. So I'm gonna take it to work and shoot some stuff with that. And yeah, I've been kind of missing the 28 to 105. We maybe can talk about that some other time. We've beat it to death in the last handful of weeks, but it fills that void for sure. It's just neat. So we'll probably talk about it, and maybe I'll do some photos and we can talk about it when I've spent more time with it. But
for sure,
another reason why really gross old lenses are fun on mirrorless cameras, because that adapter is $10.
Absolutely.
And Luke gave me that lens. So
That's fun,
Yeah.
man. I can
pretty
go
good.
over my weekend a little bit if you
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
want. So, most of you guys probably know I moved to Marquette. Excuse me. About a year ago now, and before I moved, I was in contact frequently with Charlevoix's tourism board. Their Visit Charlevoix on socials, and I've done a lot of work with them. Some of my stuff is in print around town there. Some of my stuff, because they're affiliated with the Pure Michigan campaign, has floated up and has been used a little bit more broadly with Pure Michigan. And so I was contacted and I was requested for a weekend, which was yesterday as of recording today, so December 7th, and we were able to make it happen. I went down, and the event was a hot cocoa contest, which is what Charlevoix does around this time every year. And so it's like a dozen businesses or so participate. They have like homemade recipes, different restaurants, and I think some of the hotels participate. And we shot this, I want to say like 3, maybe 4 years ago. And so it was just time to update some photos. And with the ability to get down here or get down there, I made it down. And my buddy Derek, who I was talking about with the a7C2, offered to assist me on the shoot. And so I was happy to have him with me, and I was really curious to see how the A7C2 would perform in varying conditions. He's not he would probably say he's an amateur photographer, but he and I have been talking cameras for a long time. He actually sold me my first camera back in 2012. And so he just hasn't been doing a lot of it since then, but he's always been interested. And so finally he's starting to dip his toes a little bit more into working with photography. And so I had him shoot with me. And other than him only shooting, I think it was like 100 and maybe 50 images total for the whole 2 hours. He did great. I actually used some of his images, and they made it through the final pass for editing. And like I said, I was handling the A7C2. I like the camera. He has one accessory that I think is kind of a game changer for that camera, and it's a small rig thumb grip. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah, it clips into the hot shoe, and it creates a space for your thumb to sit and grip the camera. And I thought, wow, that is actually fantastic, because I feel like where my thumb would naturally want to find a thumbstick on the A7C when I had that camera, that would have at least given my thumb a place to be and hold the camera a little bit better and take my mind off the fact that I didn't have a thumbstick to move. But it just felt a whole lot more stable in the hands. And I was like, dang, I don't know how much this costs, but it's worth every penny. But anyway, shoot went well. 2 hours. It was 4.5 hour, almost 5 hours down, about 5 hours back up. So only 2 hours of shooting. We got it done. I took about 2,000 photos and delivered 151 photos at the end of it. So lots of inside businesses, outside businesses, lots of kids and people with cups of hot cocoa, all kinds of lighting conditions going from one business to the next to the next.
Were you on a 28 to 105 the whole time?
I was trying not to say it. I didn't change the lens at all. So Derek has two Samyang lenses. He was like, I could do the 85 one. I think he got the 1.4 and the 35 1.4, if I'm not mistaken. And so I was like, you know what? The compression at the long end of the Sigma at 2.8, I think looks just as fine as an 85 1.4 in a lot of scenarios. I had him run the Samyang 35 the whole time because for, I think, a lot of instances, he could be a little bit more versatile, wider, in a couple different spaces. and so
it's elite.
It's nice. I actually was playing with the files, and there is some CA, but for the money, that lens is fantastic, and the CA was completely fixable. It was a nice thin, but hard purple green fringe that I was able to get rid of no problem. But the lens is just nice. It feels nice. It's on the big side, but it feels nice. Like I was like, you could use my 51.4 if you want from Sigma. I pulled that lens out, and I think it was a little bit smaller than the 35 1.4 from Samyang.
I can believe that.
But when he showed up, because what I saw the day before, did you see that Samyang just announced a 35 1.4 Prima lens.
I haven't. No.
They just announced a brand new lineup of lenses called Prima. It sounds a little fanciful, like Nikon's, Plena name.
Yeah.
And so it looks like it's a little bit more geared towards like small and compact, and they say good breathing control. And so we're seeing even third parties come out with more premium lenses. I don't think anyone has one yet. I haven't seen a review yet. I just saw the announcement on socials, and so it looks nice. He of course kicked himself a little bit as he got the lens for the first real job, and the Prima gets announced, but whatever. We'll see what that turns into. I would like to see a review of it and see where Samyang's direction is, because it seemed to me, I know a few photographers with the version 2s of their 1.4 primes, and they're totally fine. Like AF is totally fine. Other than me trying to nitpick what's the AI chip doing, blah blah blah, whatever. It's totally usable, and it felt comfortable. It was not failing in situations. I was being very picky with it. So anyway, he had the 35 Samyang 1.4 version 2, and then I rocked the Sigma 28-105, of course. It did very well, of course. It's, one thing that, because this is my first, even though I've used it for work in the cafe and whatnot, this is my first commercial shoot. And I was remembering do you remember when we were having conversations about the Sigma 150-600, and I was feeling maybe insecure about its sharpness until I really got to learning it a little bit more and figuring out where its sweet spots are for settings and whatnot. This is not happening with this lens. At 2.8 across the board, slow shutter speed, doesn't really matter, high ISO. It's just sharp everywhere. I'm having trouble finding faults. There's a little bit of CA at 2.8 with super high contrasty stuff inside businesses, but that's going to happen with just about any lens in some of those scenarios with weird lighting on top of that. But man, is it sharp. Unbelievable, sharper than any other lens that I've ever owned, and it's not a prime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're like I said, we're kind of in a golden age for consumer cameras, and that's just another example. So yeah, the gig went well. I got home last night around 8 o'clock, and I already finished editing middle of the day today, and they all look great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a good time.
I mean, obviously I'm biased, but the 35 mil is so ideal in those situations for me. If I had to, especially if I was second shooting, please just let me take a 35 mil 1.4.
I could never.
It's everything. It's how my brain sees, how my eyes see. I can do details, I can do wides, I can do portraits. I love that thing. It's you and I think I'm pretty sure Chris Nichols hates the 35 too.
Yes.
But yeah, it's ideal. I'm a video boy, and I see the world in 35. Realistically, it's 40, but
sure,
I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of great images at 35, and I like the look that some photographers can get, but it just is so uninspiring to me. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally fair. I'm definitely interested in looking at these Samyang. It kind of looks like the newer 135 as well. Their new little styling makes their lenses look kind of sharp. They don't look like toys. Even Viltrox gets close, but they have that weird new age digital font that just makes me go, I don't even want one of those on my camera. I think it looks it looks too much like an off-brand toy. But that I mean, the Samyang stuff looks pretty clean. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the new Nikon stuff or something. Right.
Yeah. We'll see. I see that Petapixel has a review up for the 35 1.4P from Samyang, the Prima lens. So I'm interested to see where else they'll go. I also did see, just a little off topic, but I think it was Samyang's modular lenses. Did you see Christopher? Do you follow Christopher Frost on YouTube?
I don't. I watch his videos occasionally, but did he get that one that has the inserts?
Yeah, I was actually fairly impressed with its use. no, it's not incredible edge to edge, but it was never going to be. But he tested it across the board, wide open and down to, f11 or whatever he normally does. And I was like, wow, this is completely usable. Like Samyang thought of a product, crazy as it sounds, and made it totally usable. I don't know like who I would recommend it to, but I thought it was just interesting. You should check it out.
It's basically like a swappable pancake, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of sick. Like if you really just want to live in that, like I want a tiny camera, like I'll take a whatever the even smaller than the a6700 or whatever and take a tiny thing. I mean, right? It's fun.
It's weird, but not garbage.
Yeah. I'll take that. I'll take that. What else have you been up to shooting and stuff?
Man, not a lot of wildlife. I just had the realization that the 150 to 600 has been sitting on my shelf for a long time, for like weeks. And, it's not because I'm not thinking about it. I've been on eBird lately, and I've been watching like the lakes that I drive by for work like every day. And I'm seeing like these groups of ducks, but as it gets colder and colder, there's going to be less and less space for them to sit. And so I'm getting like every single day less motivated to try and go find any wildlife. But I have been doing landscapes and stuff with the lens that shall not be named anymore for the rest of the episode, and just having fun. So just a bunch of different landscapes, getting back to the core of what I've always loved. Way back in the day, I was just a junkie for Thomas Heaton videos, and I still love his videos. But that is what I would like go right to if I was feeling like I needed something to motivate me. And these days, I don't really need them as much. I just love the idea of getting out with the camera and just getting one great landscape shot, whether it's totally like meaningless to anyone else, like just an intimate detail of one tree or something, or just something really nice that anyone in the area could relate to instantly. It doesn't really matter to me anymore. I really just do get that gratification. So I've been doing a bunch of that, which is nice, and it doesn't even have to take up a ton of time if you got a plan. So I have gone out a few times. I can't recall anything specific, any stories specifically, but I will just say I've been having some fun.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm definitely getting back there. If it stays warm like this through the week, because it's like really warm today, I'm going to try maybe to get out a little bit tomorrow morning, maybe just to do a walk around here and try to find some of the birds. Cause there's like 5 or 6 different species flying around Old Town.
Yeah.
And then just give the a6700 the business a little bit. But
yeah, Lake Superior should not freeze, and I am going to get curious what hangs around Lake Superior. I still want to catch grebes. I haven't got any grebes at all up here, and there's a couple different kinds than I did have access to in Charlevoix. So I'm going to keep my eye out, maybe go back to Black Rocks because I'm familiar with hiking around there in the winter back in the day, and I know those peregrine falcons are there, and I'm curious if they are active much in the winter. So we'll see.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Pseudo bird related. This summer, I got gifted the game Wingspan, and we finally broke into it and played it a bunch. The board game. Have you ever heard of it?
No, I haven't.
Basically, it's like a deck builder bird game, but all the cards are different types of birds, and the game is based on kind of their environment and their like nesting style and stuff like that. It's an incredible board game if you are looking for something fun to play with friends and family or whatever. It is sick. We played it for a few hours with our friends Hope and Evan a couple weekends ago, Thanksgiving weekend, and Evan jokingly was like, if you guys aren't back in Lansing today, you could always come back over and play Wingspan.
Nice.
And I was like, yeah, sure, we can do that before we go back to Lansing. So we went back and played 2 more games on Sunday before driving back to it's good. And
That's
you
awesome.
Can play it. You could play it by yourself. They have like an Automa version, so you can play like against the other deck, or you can play basically 1 to 5 people. And the amount of birds, there's hundreds of cards, and there's expansions for cards for birds around the world, and they just have like little nuggets of information. So it's a good way to learn like different types of birds and what their names are and stuff.
It's nice to see some other industries capturing the birder market.
Yeah, it's sick. It's such a good game, so I definitely recommend a good holiday, gift for your birding pals.
Nice.
But yeah, so I mean, I have a couple of things. There's been a little bit of news, but nothing too crazy, and there wasn't a whole lot. I did want to make note of this Brightstar 50mm f1.4 coming out, because I just don't understand why Sony or somebody else hasn't tried to do this yet. I don't hate the design, though the number text is a little janky. I can send you a link if you want me to. But it's $239. It's a 51.4 autofocus lens. They're claiming it's super sharp or whatever the heck, but it looks like it's like kind of high quality.
Oh, okay.
And it's like $239. I'm
Oh,
super
now
curious.
that's key.
Yeah, and I'm super curious if this thing's like kind of good, because I don't know. I've been talking from a bunch of different industries that like made in Chinese stuff used to be like kind of off-brand garbage, right?
Yes,
but like
yes.
that's where everything is made now, and they're getting so good at making stuff. Like in my industry, there's all sorts of like laser modules, like laser aiming modules and stuff. And in the last 2 years, all the fake ones went from being barely rated for airsoft to basically being the same as the $3,500 laser modules for sub $100,
You know,
to
it's-
up to about $400. And it's like, how are they doing this?
I'm glad you brought this up because I was just thinking the other day, whatever happened to Yongnuo making lenses? Because they were kind of pioneering that here's the knockoff that's accessible, and clearly it's not as good, but it had potential to have like version 2s that could really make it viable. I remember having a Yongnuo probably 24 or something back in, maybe it was a 50 back in the day, that I was like, you know what, this thing is pretty garbage, but I could see the potential for where this could go. And I feel like I haven't heard that name in years.
That's because they're basically nothing, but they still make stuff. And I just had to Google it because I needed to go on their site. But they do small rig style video lights. They do Fujifilm X. They do Nikon Z. They do RF lenses.
I'm not surprised by that. But what I did like was the fact that they had accessible lenses. And I just haven't heard a lens announcement from them in a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, these all must have been relatively new, though. Some of them are designs that couldn't have existed, a couple years ago.
Right.
But
this was back in like D810, D850 days, so I wasn't on mirrorless yet. So
I had their Canon. Their Canon 50 was literally a copy of the EF Canon 50mm.
Yeah.
Like it looked identical, other than it said Yongnuo and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it looks like they still kind of do. And they make a copy of like the speed lights.
Yes.
They always had like whatever the manufacturer. Basically, it's now what Godox did.
Yeah.
They took basically the Godox designs now and they just like make those cheap. But they're Godox prices now. And their lenses are Samyang prices. Like these are $379 for, autofocus, looks like subpar okay-ish lenses. And they're at the price of all the other Chinese companies now.
Right. It's like when you pay a tenth of the price, you just know what you're getting into, and you have to you just accept the fact that it's not going to autofocus well at all. But for a tenth of the price, you can step into glass that looks like it could be decent.
Right.
Yeah. And that's what I did with that one lens back in the day. So I was just curious. And with this one you're talking about here, it sounds like the same deal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and this looks nice. This looks like high quality. Okay. Like I don't want, like, I hope this is just dope.
Sure.
Because again, it's a 51.4. I think and it's just an STM motor like lens, but it looks like, it says APS-C, but it says for the A7 III, A7C, A7R. So I don't know. It was just announced. It's a Chinese company. I'm curious to see some people make a video on it. It's got freaking 12 optical lenses. Like, it looks legit.
I'm curious if like COVID and impacts on the manufacturing industry in China have new third-party companies with less options for manufacturing that are only on the better side these days. I'm curious if some of the absolute low-tier manufacturing options disappeared with COVID,
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I had something extra for you that I didn't prepare you for, but I just saw this, and I'll ask you this question first before I say it. I want desperately to get off of Adobe, and I think a lot of people do too, Lightroom specifically, that is the crux. Do you have any options that you've come up with? I've been trying Darktable again for a while, and it's just not there. It has never really been there. It's an option. It's a free option if you're curious. It's an open source Lightroom-like program, but it's just so clunky still. The UI is just not lovable in any way, and it's not even that fast or that much better in any way, but it's an option. Do you have other options that you've heard of?
Here's the thing, and here's the problem. The one that could actually do it for a while was Capture One.
Yeah.
And their perpetual license now locks you into basically the day you buy it. And I always flip my cameras in glass for new cameras in glass. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I still have access to Capture 112. It does the cataloging thing kind of less intuitively. Like you kind of got to be on it and really organize it well because there's just a lot going on. So I would say it's pretty dang professional. But once they started doing any of this AI stuff, you can't even begin to compare. Like just doing minor stuff that you can do in other programs would take me up to 5 times the amount of time.
And when you say AI, you're talking about denoise and generative?
I don't denoise a lot because I add grain to most of my images, but yeah. So like any kind of
so
like
you're
stamping,
specifically talking about removal stuff.
Yeah, removal stuff, or I mean, dude, even just like I haven't found a single program that can isolate the background and do masking.
Sure.
As good as like that's unreal. Come on.
They've gotten so good so fast in the masking department.
Yeah, and it's like I use masking on almost every single image I do. So
I want to ask you if you've seen this. I was just browsing Petapixel earlier today. Xire Photo 2025 promises to dramatically speed up photo culling and organization. This sounds like another one of those types of programs, but in my just brain fog of desire of wanting to get off of Lightroom one day, someday, I was like, all right, let me read this article. It's a well-written article from Petapixel. It's very thorough. And I was like, all right, it looks like they have the culling down. It looks like they've got good organization tools. And then I was getting down to some stuff about AI, and I was like, okay. And I like that you brought the AI stuff up because I'm like, okay, what do we have to compare here? And we have with AI, users can configure a personal culling assistant and select the quote best photos based on adjustable criteria, including things like sharpness and specifically eye sharpness for a batch of portraits. That's cool. That's interesting. I'm still wrapping my brain around the feeling of can I trust it to do such a job, but I guess experience would lead you to do that, right? But there were a number of other things in here. As mentioned, Xire Photo 2025 also includes AI-based aesthetics evaluation to help photographers find their best photos. Xire's Aesthetics AI engine evaluates each image uploaded to a user's catalog. Uploaded is an interesting word, and I'm wondering if that's cloud-based or not. To a user's catalog, judging it and using an aesthetics score based on things like composition, content, sharpness, and exposure. PRC hopes it will help users find hidden gems in their image catalogs. And so now I'm wondering, do they, as the creators of this program, hope that their photographers using this program would just dump the images in, and then do they take control of what gets fed back to the photographer? Is that their end goal? I'm like, I don't know if I can sit well with that at all. I like the idea of AI helping me find the most sharp images or whatever, but to evaluate based on aesthetics in composition and different things is very, very interesting to me. So I was curious if you'd heard of that or if that interests you at all.
No, so here's the thing. I was just kind of exploring something that I saw this weekend, which was Cassidy Lynn, who's a wedding photographer from Grand Rapids. She's wildly popular. She's actually now big enough to be invited by Sony to their condo and stuff, which is good for her. She's got a podcast and stuff. If you're into like that kind of thing, she crushes like TikTok style content. So she just absolutely exploded with like bits and gadgets and stuff. But I
Awesome.
still follow some of her stuff because I think like she has a really nice wedding aesthetic, and sometimes her stuff has actually been helpful. A lot less lately because I think she's big enough that she's really kind of reaching out to like newer, really beginner kind of style photographers. But she mentioned, and I tried to just look for it really quick, some kind of AI tool that helps her edit. And I don't know if it was an ad because she was like had a brand partnership or something for it. And I've seen several other things that do this where it can like use machine learning to understand your edit style, or you can like do inputs to say this is like here's a bunch of the stuff that I do, and like I edited a handful of things so it knows what I want from my image. And she's like, I think the quick TikTok-y reel was like, I tell my client that I have 2 weeks to edit, but I got all 2,500 photos done the night before. Oh, the trick was that I didn't edit them, and whatever this program was called did. And so that, and like let the computer tell me which of my photos are good, is probably super sick for people who picked up a camera because they knew they could make money taking people's photos.
Yes, exactly.
And I am not that photographer.
Same.
I have been, always will be, despite it becoming like a huge part of my job. I'm still a marketer for the main point of my job who gets to utilize the thing he likes to do as a means to market. So I only take photos and edit photos of stuff that I like, that I think is good. I some days get really, really meticulous with how I want an exact thing to be. It's not an accident how I take some of my photos. I will move out of focus things in the background of my desk when I'm doing like layouts and stuff, because that's how I want the image to look. And so for me, I spend a decent amount of time looking at other people's workflows to get ideas of how I could change composition, how I could do different stuff in my edits, but it's all because I want the stuff in my toolbox. I do not want something telling me what's good, what's bad, what's like, hey, maybe you should like, I wouldn't even want to pop up to say, hey, I see that you didn't edit this photo, but we actually think it has a pretty high chance of being a cool edit. I would hate that. Like if it was like a Microsoft, like the little paperclip dude, and he was like, hey, by the way, we found this unedited image that we think could be really good, I would burn my computer.
I love everything you're saying right now. I do. And I think this program is in spite of artists and is trying to market towards volume photographers who are, just like you said, trying to make a buck. With high volume, I know a lot of photographers offload that work to people who call and edit for them, or just call for them and they'll come back and edit them. And for those types of photographers who have to segment their business a little bit, maybe this is the product for them. I don't think I would ever consider a program that wants to tell me, like you said, this image is better than this image. That's just not what I want. I want a lot more control than that. And I hope that some of these things can be turned off, toggled off, and maybe then it's worth looking at as purely an alternative for Lightroom for cataloging power, because that's really, I could honestly give up generative AI stuff. And I could probably give up AI denoise in most situations, unless I'm really feeling the burn. But
I mean, you could always do Topaz Labs if you want denoise outside, and they're apparently great. I know a lot of people that absolutely love that tool.
I've used them, and they've been really good for a lot longer than AI has been used in the industry. They've been on that stuff. But I do want to make a note. I just saw this at the very end. This is for Mac OS and Windows, $199 standalone. I think it's doing a limited time launch for $170 one-time purchase, which is nice. No subscription. If you have the 2024, you can upgrade for $70, but I'm thinking nobody who listens to us right now has this program. There is a 14-day trial, and it runs locally on the computer. Users' photos are not accessible by any third party, nor are they exported to any cloud. So that's kind of nice. I might look into that, because I was really hoping that Darktable was finally because it got a really recent significant update, but it's open source, so these things are not consistent a lot of the time. but it just is not there. So a Lightroom alternative that has like powerful cataloging, that's what I was really hoping for.
Well, are you just looking to be able to catalog in Cole?
Well, but I mean, great UI for editing as well.
So I guess I just missed, like, this actually is an editor as well.
Oh yeah,
you can do basic control stuff. Got it. Okay.
Oh, maybe I should look more into that before I actually commit to saying that.
Because like I mentioned, I think on the last episode, there's that narrative select and plus edit like program that's free that you should look at if you're just trying to catalog and get your stuff like kind of sorted out. I was kind of looking at it. I know some people were using it, but here's the thing. Like, first of all, going back to other photographers and how they decide to live their lives. That's capitalism, baby. And we're never going to be able to do anything about that. Sorry that some people don't care about art the way we do. And like, that's the nature of art. But it's always going to be like that. If I wanted to work like that, I absolutely could. If I wanted to scale a business right now and do like soul-sucking photography, I absolutely could. I could quit my job and probably make a ton of money. I have all the tools necessary to do that.
Right.
I don't hate myself enough to. So like, I just know that like I am different than that. Some people love that grind and they can do that, but I have in the past multiple times turned my hobby into a job to the degree where I started to hate it, and I'll never do it again. I won't do it with photography or video. I absolutely refuse. And for me, like, I don't know, if I was going to just like wanted to cut time and I was trying to scale my business, I would hire a creative ass Gen Alpha intern, dude. Like,
sure.
They got the aesthetic way better than a freaking AI. 100% they do. You could give them all the knowledge that you ever wanted to. You should. Gatekeeping is stupid and it's for nerds. Like, teach them everything you know. Have them cull your stuff. Yeah. They'll edit your thing. They become a part of your business, and then you just like it stonks. I don't know. Like, yeah. I feel like unless you like really spend time to thoroughly adapt an AI tool to your workflow, it's not actually speeding anything up. You're getting rid of a huge important part of a story you're trying to tell, especially with a wedding. Like, am I going to trust this stupid AI to tell my story of a wedding where I can like actually weave a narrative through,
like the stupid
images?
Little shots that were actually more important than what it seems compositionally or whatever, right? Yeah.
Because I'm going to put this shot right after this one because you're going to see this, and then you're going to get like, great mammy freaking almost in tears, and it's like kind of out of focus, and it's not perfect because it's like the freaking shot, and that's what you got, and it's amazing.
Right.
And like, this client doesn't give a flying if mammy is in focus or not. I got the moment. Like,
exactly.
Out of my hundreds of photos that you deliver or whatever, like, there's no way. If you just want this like cookie cutter super clean aesthetic all the time, I'm sure it probably does that well, and there's like, I don't know, there's room for that to be perfectly fine. But it's like, how much of your images look like the raw by the time you're done with them? Like, I purposefully will take a photo that's not perfectly aligned because I just want to make sure I have a little bit more space from the composition. Like, there's so many little things I can think of right now where like it's just going to be like, oh, this is your better shot. Yeah, of course it is. If I was shooting JPEGs out of camera, I'd worry about that. But
we'll wrap this up soon, but thank you for bringing up that one detail. No, it is not an editor. It is mainly for organization and culling. So keep that in mind. That does make it kind of an expensive program just for culling, but you're not paying that every month. I will say I was looking at Affinity Photo. I've heard of this one, and it's got a 50% off sale right now through the holidays, I believe, and that makes it like $30-something to buy one time, which I'm super tempted to do, because if I can eventually find just a culling program, and I would not like breaking this process up, because Adobe's got a stranglehold on this workflow. But if I can find a cheap one-time payment thing here and a cheap one-time payment thing here that does two things very well, maybe that's the way I can eventually turn it.
Right. I'm still in the same thing. There's one little beacon of hope that Apple is buying Pixelmator, which I don't know anything about. Pixelmator, Petapixel talked about this a bunch. And they're kind of talking about how like Final Cut is like doing everything it can to try and get some market share again. If they can dunk a freaking Apple native really, really powerful quick editor, cataloger situation for OSX. Um, I mean, there's a
Would love
really,
it.
really high chance that I will try it. Um, but we'll see. I mean, the round tripping to Photoshop is 2 gold. Like, just sending a TIFF back to your catalog is amazing.
That's very
It keeps
powerful.
everything. Yeah, it's epic. It's unlike anything. Definitely look at narrative plus edit.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it.
I'd love to look at
It
it.
it might do that whole first thing you're trying to do.
Cool. Cool.
And it is, there's a paid version, but the guy who I saw it in a YouTube video using it, he just uses the free one, and he's doing professional
Oh,
photography.
cool, cool,
So
cool. Okay.
so it seems like it's probably part of the deal. And I think he uses that and just Photoshop.
Yeah.
But anyway, the next deal here, I guess, I mean, there's like several other things I'd like to talk about. We've been kind of sparse on our edits, but let's just kind of knock this off in case we get a little crazy in the next few weeks. I know I will be at work. We have a lot of changes happening, like really crazy changes. So the holidays. I'm gonna be wrapping this a6700 up and giving it to Elle. No, I'm just kidding. That was her joke earlier today. She was like, "You should just wrap that and give it to me." And I was like, "No, that's lame. I'm gonna probably buy you way more things than you want me to." But say you were trying to buy a lovey-dovey human in your life who you care a lot about, and you're willing to spend a good chunk of change. What do you get somebody who's just like, maybe you've seen they're so inspired by photography they could never afford one themselves. They're like your 16-year-old nephew, and you're like, oh, I got this, and you're just big homies, big pals, favorite relative, or it's your sister, or it's your son. What are you buying?
I think I said this before. This was an easier thing to figure out in DSLR days, or at least at the tail end of the lifespan of DSLR, because you just had so many options that were in that crop sensor family of cameras that brought that price down. And prices just at everything looked better back in the day. But we do have some options, and I was thinking about this, and I think just a few weeks ago I would have said the Canon R8, just a fantastic camera to start off with. I know we brought this topic up before the show, but I didn't ask you what budget we would think about. But the R8 is hard to pass up. 24 megapixels. It's got the speed. It's got a lot of things just any photographer needs, and plenty more than what most budget photographers, amateur newbies would need and want. But Canon now accepts Sigma glass on APS-C, and I couldn't help but think about something like the R10 for $879 with some of that Sigma glass. We're talking $400, $500. You could get the 31.4 for $294 right now, and be in the system for like $1,200 all in.
Yeah, they make the 18 to 50 for the Canon now. Yeah, which is insane.
And so I was like, okay, what else do they have with the crop sensor? The R7's there too, and so you've got a couple options for Canon for crop with third-party glass that gets you in for under $2,000 in multiple ways, which is really, really cool. It does get a little harder if you're trying to look at like $1,000 under. You got to go used, and you got to go probably a couple years old at this point. You can still do it, but I think for the purpose of this conversation, it's probably better to stick with like what's new and what you can build out. And maybe we can offshoot later. But I was thinking R10 with some Sigma glass. You could keep it well. You could probably get two Sigma glass Sigma lenses for about $1,500, and you've got range and you've got options.
I agree with that. That's pretty slick. I guess I don't know who this person in my life would be, so I was trying to like really think about it. But I think like based off like the fads and the basically the general scope of what I think like normal people that aren't like hard photographers already are doing, I can't see a problem with the XM5 with the 15 to 45 kit lens for $8.99.
Oh yeah,
You
sure.
you get
With
the
a
film
lens.
sim, you get the film sim, you get like a little bit of the video stuff.
That's only
It shoots-
$100 over the body price. That's interesting. So
Yeah,
that's
they
the
give
kit.
that
Yeah.
they give that lens away.
Wow.
And like you get the film sim, so you're basically getting this X100 fad. Like you're
I
getting
forgot
the
this
whole
existed. Wow, this gets you into being the cool kid with the Fuji for pretty cheap.
This is like if I had like a niece or nephew who was like a 16, 17 years old and they're like, I just really want to be a fashion photographer or like a street photographer, like
Yeah.
whatever. This thing is sweet for sub $1,000. And if you really wanted to, you could slap a dumb ass lens on there to do some birds.
Yeah.
Because I would convince my niece or nephew to get into birding if that was a human being that I was talking about.
It is a slick
yeah.
little camera. It's got a flip out screen. It's got what generally the general population would want in a camera if they were not already an experienced photographer. And if it's like first camera, good, great, run that.
Yeah, what's the Fuji makes a cheap ass zoom too. How much can I get that freaking zoom for? Let's see. Oh, I forgot Sigma also makes zooms for them now. That's pretty cool. I thought there was a pretty decent one. I guess I'd have to look, but you could basically upgrade to any of the Sig birding lenses because they make them all. You can get the freaking Tamron 150 to 500 on that boy.
Oh, that's neat.
You can get the freaking 100 to 400 on that boy. You could, if you really loved your niece or nephew and you also kind of hated them because you wanted to put the Fujifilm 150 to 600 on that tiny camera, you could. I bet it'd do birds. It has crazy autofocus. It's the most up to date.
That's really cool. I can't argue with that at all. What a neat way to get in for less money. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I was really, really, really impressed when I saw that. I thought it was really killer. Anyway, if you do have a photographer in your life that you're gonna buy them sweet, sweet gifts for the holidays, just make sure that you charge them batteries and you give them a card, and then so they can just start shooting Christmas morning. Because they'll lose their mind.
Yes, battery card. And if you're like poking around on Amazon or something, just make sure that whatever configuration you pick does include a lens, because you can accidentally buy a camera that does not have a lens with it. So look hard at what you're actually buying.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap this show up with the Sony a7 IV, potentially a camera, was registered in China.
Hang on one second. The last show we did preceded the announcement of the A1 too.
Oh yeah, did it?
That came out.
That did come out. I'm 1000% buying the 28 to 70 f2 this year.
Let's just talk about that then.
Okay. All right. So I sold the Voldemort lens because I kind of got whiff of the 28 to 70 actually being quite good. And was like, okay, well, I still have a return window. I'm going to return this lens. I bought it full price. So I was going to be able to like just go buy it full price or even at a discount now. Cause I think it's like $200 off for Christmas. But I was like, okay, I know the way I am with my A7S III and wanting to have breathing compensation, even though you don't need it really with the 28 to 7 or 105, knowing that I would want at least some corrections, and the 28 barrel distortion for video, if you're trying to do tripod pans or something, can get me sometimes. And it was the one thing that I finally started to realize trying to shoot my table, like me doing talking head stuff at work. And I was like, okay, well, why wouldn't I just go get the way cheaper 28 to 70 f2 f2.8 from Sigma if I'm still dealing with this distortion? And it was kind of making me too lazy to switch to my 70 to 200. I decided it'd be dumb for me to get rid of that. It's a great travel bird lens with the 2X. If I can't take the 200 to 600. And I was just like, there's no way. I love my 70 to 200 to death. The 28 to 70 barely zooms out, is a perfect size, is I don't know how they did it. I watched every video. I tried to find like a reason why I didn't want it. The price I don't care about, because I'm gonna have this 70 to 200 until 2030.
Yeah.
So I don't mind buying the 28 to 70 when I know I'm gonna have it for the next 8 to 10 years and just be fine. It's gold, and 70 f2 looks super good, super crispy. It makes me not really kind of need the 50. I have this 24. Like, I have a fast enough lens if I need. This one does my Astro if I need it. Yeah, it does so much of that. I just need really thin stuff. I've even thrown macro rings on this 24 at work to get just like really close up, really sharp, super shallow details.
Fun.
Yeah, it does everything. The A12 is incredible. I thought the A1 was awesome.
Oh, everyone did. Yeah.
I had just rented it like a month before this, right?
Oh, yeah,
Or I had it in September. And I was like, I could buy this camera. And I'll be honest with you, if I had just bought an A1, I would probably have sold it to buy the A12, because the freaking flip lens, the freaking flip screen is the greatest thing they've ever made. Period.
Yeah.
Just period. It's so good.
Yeah.
So all the little accoutrements, like it's good. Everybody who is in the $6,000, $6,500 price range, they're not sweating, I'm going to go upgrade to the A12 if that's what they like, over the A9 III, for instance.
Yep.
Both are incredible cameras. Both are for ultra pros. They're not for hobbyists. They're not for you guys like hanging out. Like, cool. I kind of want one. I'm not like even a pro enough to justify it. I am just an enthusiast who happens to use a camera, so I can kind of justify it to myself. But it's not necessary.
Right.
That's pretty much it. Why I was looking at the A7R5. But anyway, your perspective. What were your thoughts and feels?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we've talked in this manner before. Once it's in that kind of price bracket, for me personally, it gets harder for me to kind of like think about these things in ways that materialize in any meaningful way. And so like, I would love to rent it. I would love to rent it with the 28 to 70 f2 and have a ton of fun. It's so far up there. If you're a professional sports shooter, just get one. A9 III obviously is going to do that kind of job as well. Wildlife and sports, A9 III is going to be great at. But the A1 was that do-it-all camera. And there wasn't a ton of faults that I can think that a lot of people complained about for what it was designed to do. And so everyone was talking about, what can Sony do for the A12 that entice people to come up? And I just don't, at this point, maybe it's in retrospect, I don't think that was ever the conversation that ever needed to take place, because it just was never designed for the people that were trying to come up from something. Like from what? Like the A7R5? Those people are going to love that camera. And if they just wanted more speed, maybe. And if they just absolutely love that flip screen and just needed something with more speed, because the trade-off is a little bit in dynamic range, if I'm correct, a little tiny bit
from the A9,
from the A7R5.
Oh, from the A7R5. I mean, probably, maybe.
Just minimal.
But
so
you're dealing with just like the slight differences in the sensor. We're cutting hairs. None of these people are doing charts to figure out what their max dynamic range is.
I think I can speak for most people when I say nobody expected a revolution. It's an evolution. That phrase has come around and gone. And I think it applies here. Great camera. It's for the pros, like you said, not for me. And I won't be looking out personally for an A1 Mark III. I wasn't asking for an A1 Mark II, but people were. So for those people, sell your A1s, grab an A1 Mark II, and stay in current times, because that's just how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it gave it what they had. They were like, we're going to take our best camera, we're going to give it all the stuff that it needs to be up to date, and that's what it is. They brought it out at the same exact price. What do you want? Like, they didn't charge you $1,000 more for it or anything. They just dropped the price of the old one, made the new one. The A1 is amazing, and it's $1,000 off. Go get one.
And 5 years from now, it'll still be amazing.
Yeah, it's still going to be freaking epic. We're at the point where like your camera isn't... When I realized that, and I got my A7S III again, and I was like, oh, I'm going to keep shooting for 4K delivery. I don't need more than 4K anything.
Yeah.
I just need really sharp, good low light 4K that crushes.
Yeah.
The rest is me. The rest is all me. There's nothing that camera is going to deliver or not deliver to me that I can't do. Same with the A1. It's legendary.
Yeah. Good for Sony. Thanks for doing it. People wanted it. Certain people wanted it.
All right, now shotgun, the A7 V, which is, I mean, I guess what's your biggest? I need it to have this for me to care enough to get one.
Faster buffer, or faster readout speed, and that's kind of like you just continue to run into it over and over. Electronic shutter is useless on the A7 IV. We just need a faster processor to make that more viable. I do not care at all if there's a resolution bump. I want the AI chip, but I want that autofocus to be meaningfully like it feels like it got a performance bump. I don't really care the fact that it's AI or whatever, but if it feels like it got an upgrade in autofocus capability, that would be very helpful, because there are certain situations that it could feel like it could benefit. It's a great camera, but man, it just has to be faster. I want 15 to 20 FPS shooting and a usable electronic shutter. And honestly, if they just deliver there fantastically, I would love that flip out screen. Then I would sell and upgrade.
Yeah, fair enough. The only thing I need it to do over an A7 IV to want it is to have the flip screen and no crop in 4K 60.
I think we're there. I think we're there with no crop 4K 60 at this point.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all that I need it to have for me to go perfect. Now I can have a full frame photo camera to do professional photography work with and be fine.
It's the A7 IV is so rounded otherwise for where it sits in the market. It's not like people are asking it to do a whole lot more. And so if they can just give it a little more viability with electronic shutter, for me, I would be right on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to see them try to push into like 6K or anything like that. I don't want, unless they do 6K open gate, which then we're talking a whole different game. It's getting pre-ordered. But yeah, so Sony Alpha Rumors did kind of two scenarios. I'll link below because we're not going to go through everything. But
I'm looking at it.
Another one that I thought would be pretty mega for me, especially running my A7S III again. Even Zach, who doesn't know anything and he barely ever shoots a camera, picked up my A7S III to take some photos on the range and went, dude, this looks like I'm staring out of a tube into real life. Why is it so good? Because it's the like 9 million dot EVF.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I didn't think Zach would know, like see that it's that much better.
Funny.
So the A7 IV they're saying a 5.76 million dot true viewfinder.
Cool.
That'd be dope.
I'd love it.
I'd love that.
Yep.
Obviously the screen. I don't really need anything. Just make sure that the 4K 60 can still function well. I guess if it can't be full frame, I guess I'll deal with it. Like I said, don't even give me higher resolution video unless it's going to be open gate. Because it's just not necessary on this level of camera. It doesn't need 8K.
Totally agree.
It doesn't need 6K, anything like that. I think it could unfortunately have the same processor, but it will get the AI chip regardless.
I can't imagine that's possible in any way. I just can't imagine. It needs more speed. I think they would piss off a ton of people if they don't do it.
I agree, but if it's still a $2,500 camera and they upgrade a bunch of other and they don't think that it's necessary to make it much faster, then
if the if the R8 can be $900 and be faster, they can do this.
Well, yeah, but it's a 24 megapixel camera that doesn't have a mechanical shutter, and there's a lot of caveats to that camera too. I wouldn't use it professionally, but so I mean, I know you want it to work faster.
It's not even that I do want it. I just think it would be a deal breaker for a lot of people for them to look at the crux of the A7 IV, them release basically the same camera at that point with the same crux. The one big thing that I think a lot of people, maybe not most, but a lot of people are yelling about with this camera.
Well, I think the issue there though is that the segment of the market is such. I know the market the market is segmented for Sony that they have so many good bodies, and they will argue that if again, the argument for if they don't make it much faster is like, first of all, this camera is not meant to do birds and sports. Like if you're doing that, go get like, because it does it fine. It does birds and sports fine at 10 FPS for a $2,000 camera. So if you want that, why aren't you buying our faster camera? And again, I don't think that's what they're gonna do, but it really just needs the AI chip to perform in all the little intricacies that these newer cameras have, I think, for the consumers to like it.
Do you think they burned themselves going up to 33 megapixels?
No, well, I mean, they can't go backwards.
In the department of readout speed and the processor maybe not being quite good enough to perform the way like wildlife shooters want. Because we are nitpicking, it's only a small percentage of A7 IV users like me and like you in some certain scenarios where we really see that and suffer. A small percentage. Sony doesn't care about those small percentages very much. We know that from experience with certain other functions and firmware updates and whatnot. So I get where you're coming from, but man, are we a loud bunch. And I just can't imagine an A7 V that isn't faster in some way.
Yeah, I mean, go buy a real camera. I mean, it's their consumer camera. It's their entry level full frame camera, dude. Like, I could see it. I'm just trying to buffer your hopes and dreams because
you got my brain spinning in loading mode right now. Like,
I think all the silly people care about like video FPSs and like the flippy screen way more than they care about the readout speed. Like everybody says
fair.
that
I'm not going to argue with that. Those are practical things.
I don't know that like normie YouTube like content creators even care about rolling shutter that much. I see egregious amounts of it all the time.
I do too.
Like,
yeah.
I see, and they're like cool with. They're like, it's just the matter of using a camera. Maybe I fixate on it a little too much. I don't fucking know, but I think I hate it. I love
it's gross
faster
that
sensors.
You're right about that though. Like tons of people don't give a damn about rolling shutter, and when I see it, I'm like, ah.
Yeah, it's awful. That's why I use an A7S III, but that's why I wish I could afford a A9 III.
But I mean, just as an anecdote, you probably remember way back when maybe it was before the Sigma, way back in the early days of me owning the A7 IV, I think, or perhaps it was even the A7 III, I discovered what it really meant to try to shoot wildlife with electronic shutter on a slow readout speed camera. And seeing rolling shutter in a still image of a duck flying and the whole image is skewed like 30 degrees. It's like, oh, this is useless in silent mode where I would want to be shooting wildlife. So we've had 2 camera bodies now where that's been a pretty big problem for those types of people. Again, we're a small percentage, and I'm going to leave it right there. I just want it to be faster.
Yeah, I mean, and what I'll say to you is that the A9 II's on sale, so
sweet.
Anyway, I have to go before I get a divorce before I'm married. And I love you guys. If you've been watching, please leave a comment. Please share this with your friends. This is a rather long episode, but we had a lot to talk about. We have more to talk about. We might not have another episode until the new year. I hope we do, but we might not. That's just the way things. So be well.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you probably, maybe in 2025.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.